Hey everybody, welcome back to Family Wrench. Today we're going to be removing and replacing upper and lower ball joints on a 2001 Dodge Ram 1500. It's a V6 model, rear wheel drive, so we don't have a hub or anything like that to worry about. So this will be the first time I've done work like this, and but we're going to try to make this, clear and to the point as much as we can, and share anything that was difficult for a DIY from a DIY perspective as we go. So let's get started. So the order here, we're going to take this caliper off first, and I'm just actually going to take the entire assembly off as one. A lot of times people will take off the brake caliper itself in the assembly, but I'm just going to take off the whole thing. The second thing is we're going to take off the brake. Third, we're going to loosen this nut here and then detach the steering rod, this ball joint here. Fourth, we're going to knock this knuckle down. Fifth, we're going to knock this one off down here. Yeah, that guy right there. We have to loosen that and knock that down. Then this whole wheel assembly should come down at that point. So once we have that, we have to, in this case, we have a riveted ball joint, which is going to be a bit of a pain. You might see that I've already taken one rivet off. So I know how to do that. We'll show you how to do one of those, and it's just going to be the same for everything. You got 3 rivets on the top in this particular configuration. Not all Dodges are the same, even at the same year. And of course the drive type matters. And then there are 4 actually holding on. Let me put my finger on it. These guys right here, if you can see my fingers, those 4 rivets have to be taken off. We're going to use the technique of drilling the top and then using a chisel to knock those heads off. All right, so let's get started with the first part. So this is the first order of business, is to take off the brake assembly. And you're going to have 2 13/16 bolts, and my finger's on one of them. The other one's down below the camera. Okay, so but that's what we're after, and that's what we'll do. You know what it was? I'm going to use the torque wrench, which has more leverage. And if you want, you can just be careful for the brake line around here. You don't want to run into it and cause any damage to it. There it is right there. I'm going to have to go get my bucket before too long here.
Is that red bucket up there?
There's a red bucket against the wall over there.
Oh, it's a Subaru WRX.
Yeah, you can cut it. So we're getting close to okay, so that second bolt is out. And so you want to have, of course, you want to be supporting this. And the reason why, again, is this brake line right here. You want to be very careful with that. This is heavy, and if it fell to the ground, it would put a good tug on that guy. Okay, here we go. I wasn't able to get my C-clamp in there to compress the caliper, so it's a little hard to get off. We'll take care of compressing that in a minute, or when we put it back together probably. We'll also take a look at these brake shoes. It'd be a great time to replace them actually, so that that's not an issue. And I'm going to put it up on an upside down bucket, and that'll keep that line from getting tugged. And then we'll on to the next one. Okay, so the rotor in this case has these little, I don't know, manufacturing clips on here that they're not actually really necessary to put them back together. It does hold the rotor on in place, so if you like them, you can keep them. If not, you know, you can just toss these things. They're not really doing anything. Okay, so we got those little holding clips off, whatever they call them. I don't know. This is the rotor. In this case, it just slides. Oh, oops, got my fingers caught in there. Slides right off. And here's the wheel hub. The wheel hub, this is probably a good time to take a look at this. This is what we had to do to diagnose this problem. Wheel hub, we were like, man, I wonder if this bearing is fine. It's fine from what I can tell. But hear that? I don't know if you can, I don't know if it's picking up on my mic, but we realized right in here. Okay, hopefully this is able to be seen on film, but that lower ball joint
Yep, I got it.
malfunctioned. So that's we did 1, 2, number 3 right here. This will be officially the first time I've ever released a ball joint, so we'll see how easy it is. This is a 13/16, and the 21 millimeter seems like it would work as well, but I believe technically it's 13/16, so that's what we're going to do. Also, by the way, I didn't mention it, but we're using a deep socket here. And then finally, this is a lock nut, so it's going to make you fight the whole way off. If you have an impact wrench, that'd be great. I don't have one. Okay, it's off and it's hot, so be careful. So you need to, I mean, obviously it's tempting to hit on this top part right here, and that might actually work, but generally speaking, you want to hit on the knuckle, and this should come down as soon as it's released. We're going to see. It's the first time I've tried this, doing this, so. Okay.
Ah.
Yeah. So if you can see this, the way this works is these are tapered. That's why when you beat on it, it'll finally come down. When you tighten it up, the taper is gonna match into that. It's gonna squeeze into that, and it's gonna make a sure connection. And that's why they're difficult to come apart when first you take the nut off. But beat on it a little bit, shakes it down. We're in Texas. It's a no rust state, basically. If you're in a rust belt state, then you're probably going to have to beat at this a lot harder than I did. But that's how that works. So the next part is we got to take the castle nut. We're going to take it down. We're not going to take it off. And that castle nut's right here where my finger's at. So ball joint's here, comes through here. This is going to come down. This whole assembly is going to come down this way in this case. And that castle nut has, I don't know what you got there. Okay, so that castle nut, they have cotter pins in them. So we're going to have to bend out that cotter pin and pull it out. Most of the time people use a tool kind of like this. It's the best one I've got. So let's see if I can do this without damaging the cotter pin. Just kind of bend it over. Let's see where I'm at here. It's gonna obviously, oh, that's right. We can change the angle of that now. That makes everything, life a lot better. Okay. I might actually get a pair of pliers. Okay, so I got a pair of janky pliers here that I got from something. I don't know what. They're not very good, but I think that's making that a little bit easier. And you got to get that, you know, straightened out enough so that it can be slid through. Try to tap it. Yeah, it's going along. Okay, cotter pin. We're going to save it. Okay, so next, we're going to take this castle nut down a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, 3 threads, something like that. 3 turns. And then we'll start beating on this upper knuckle here. We're going to let that release first. We do not want it to release under spring pressure and come up and do whatever it's going to do. It's not the easiest working environment, but let's see where we're at. Yeah. Hey, we have our garage cat. Okay, that's probably plenty. You can see, I don't know if you can see through there, but you can see a few threads. This is still very much connected. The spring pressure may help us to help that release. And I am going to put on these.
Okay.
So I wanted to mention one thing. I was wrong about how the spring works. The spring is coming up to here. It's not squeezing against the control arm. That wouldn't make sense. So, but the spring is against the lower control arm, and we're going to remove that next. We're going to leave this the way it is right now. Hopefully the spring will help us down here. That's the idea. When you're pulling out cotter pins, you can kind of use these dikes to get a little bite on there and have a little bit of leverage to pull it through. And yeah, that's how that works. And I think we're going to be able to reuse that one too.
Yep.
Good. On to the loosening of the nut. Okay, so I decided I'm just going to bring something out with some leverage because I'm not a big old boy. And that made it easy. Okay, but I had to remind myself which way is loosened when it's upside down like that. All right, so we're going to get our ratchet here. And I'm going to loosen that a few. And then we're going to see if we can get that to release. Okay, another mistake I made. I'm going to really need to let this release because the spring on the bottom tie rod is, or ball joint rather, is going to cause me, it's not going to let this come down. So I was miscalculating there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this completely. Ooh, and that's turning in there. So that's going to be a problem, isn't it? Oh, I'm able to grab a hold of it though. That's interesting. So you can see here, the fact that I can grab a hold of this is a problem. There should be a boot over it. And there was a boot, or sort of the remains of a boot when we first investigated this, and it's just gone. So both of these tie rods need to be, God, I keep saying tie rods. Both of these guys need to be replaced. All right, yeah, good. Excellent. So back to the attempt to remove this guy. Here we go. Okay, so I was about to get heat on it when I decided to go ahead and tap it from below. Now, that's not necessarily the greatest idea because of the fact that you'll mushroom the end of it. But in this case, it's exactly what's needed. This ball joint is already bad, and it came right out. I think 2 taps and it came. Now, this is the reason why you want to keep this castle nut on here, is because this whole assembly here is heavy, and it would be uncontrolled most likely if you're focused on beating on it to try to get it to loosen up. So you can kind of get a feel as to how heavy it is lifting it up. We do that, kind of let that nut drop. Yeah. So again, big old boys out there won't have as much problem as I will. But you should probably keep that on no matter what. Now this thing See the difference? I think
yeah, that's cool.
I think we knocked that one out with a little bit of impromptu off-roading. Where it's just, and notice that there's no grease certs on these, so you can't filled for the life. You know, but you can't service them. The ones that we'll put on are actually going to use bolts instead of rivets, and we'll have grease certs on them. So the next thing we got to do is start drilling out these rivets. Show you how to do one of those, and then we'll just go through the others, and then we'll be ready to clean this up, put the new ones on, and reverse the process and put it all back together. Okay, so this is the last rivet. I've learned on these other rivets. Yeah, the best way of my way, it really, probably this should be taken off and this should be done on a bench. And normally you wouldn't drill the top rivet because there's so much meat here. The bottom is a lot less, but I can't get to it this way with leaving it on. But, so, do it however you will. Basically, we have to, first of all, put a center punch here, and there's a flat spot on top of it. And you try to get it in the center best you can. Give it a little tap, one tap only, because it'll jump on you. So we're going to wind up drilling the head off first. And then we'll pop that off, and then we'll drill down into the meat of this, and then punch the rest of the rivet out the bottom. That's what will happen. Okay. Yeah, I use this. It's Tap Magic. There's all kinds of tapping fluid, cutting fluids. And I think you can just use oil too, but it'll keep your bit cool. And this first bit is the one that does the most work, because this is the one that has to actually drill the hole. The other ones are just going to waller, make the hole bigger. And you should see metal coming up. By the way, I just used my drill doctor to sharpen this drill bit, which I highly recommend. You can keep a set of bits going. I don't know if my bits are all that great, but I can keep them sharpened. I have a bit with tape on it, and this is the depth I want to go to, so I can use that to gauge how far down. Actually, in this case, sorry, I'm misapplying this. I only need to go through the head, so it's gonna have to go down about like maybe that much. So I got maybe halfway in. Nice to be able to gauge it. Okay, back to work. Oh yeah. Okay. So the next order of business is to start marching up bit sizes. I broke one of my bits, so I got a little bit of a jump here. All right, so in the early bits, you don't have so much of a problem. The later ones will start catching on you. You gotta be careful. This should waller that hole out fairly quickly. Okay, I could hear the drill laboring less. So there we go. Next size up. I don't know what the sharpen status is on my bits. I kind of sharpen them when I have to. So we'll see as we go. It's a bigger bit. Go easy at first so you don't catch too hard. You can break your bit. I've done that a couple, or like chip the bit and then it doesn't cut. And then you got to sharpen it. The best to go ginger to me. Okay, sounds good. All right, again. It's biting pretty good, I think. Okay, you can hear it when it stops cutting. Stops boring out that hole. All right, 2 moss to go, and then we can try to pop that head off. Okay, I think we can definitely pop that thing off. Now, ears and eyes. Everybody needs protection. Yeah, okay. So I've got my kit on to protect me. What's happening here, using a chisel, I'm going to pop this head off. I've got a body hammer, I guess. I don't know. My father's, probably my grandfather's old hammer for all I know. This is the idea, but do not put your hand here. The next most important thing is make sure that this is set up in such a way that we can be safe, like that. So now we're going to hit like this. Yeah, I have a jack underneath here. It doesn't really factor into this part of it so much. It will when I drill the body of the rivet out. Here we go. Get underneath it against the metal of the control arm and the rivet, trying to go sort of underneath it like that. That's the easiest one I've gotten off. I think because I drilled down so far. Okay, so now we got to drill down. We have to do that same drill into the middle of that guy. So it's another 20, 30 minutes. Okay, so now we have to drill out the body of this thing, which is, I can't really tell, maybe a little over a 1/2 inch. You have to go down in there. So of course this hole is the start and the longest one. All right, we good? Okay, so we're going to try to punch this rivet out. Now, again, use your vice grips. Okay, that's pretty good. Now, the other thing, I have a jack. This is not really holding anything up per se, but it is lifting this control arm slightly so that, in my mind at least, when I'm hammering this, it's going to be going against a hard surface. Therefore, there should be more energy in it. It should come out easier. We'll see. Hopefully it's less than 30 punches. A lot less than 30.
That was 3.
So that's how it's done. Now this guy, it actually is, I know that it's kind of sandwiched in there. So you kind of have to encourage it a little bit to come out. I think. I hope. There we go. All right. So bad ball joint, doesn't have the boot on it anymore. It's flopping around in there. So out with the old in with the new. Okay, so we're at the point now where the ball joints have been installed, and I'm going to show you. We didn't get any footage of actually installing them, but I'm going to talk about what I did and the tightening torques that we used, and some of the stuff about that. So I'll show you that next. Okay, so here's a look at the top suspension arm, and we put in the ball joint here with bolts. They are not the bolts that came with the kit, I will tell you that. I'm using these SKP. It's a 7366 for one of them and a 7365 for the other. The nuts and or the bolts and nuts that came with, just, I don't know. They didn't seem appropriate. So I actually got flanged bolts from the Bolt Depot is what I got. 1/2 inch by 20, so it's a fine thread. One of them's a 1.5 inch long. The other one is 1.25 inches. The 1.25 inch goes with the top. If you want to do this, the product number is right there. It's 17319. And yeah, I got 25 of them. Just, I don't know why. I'm not going to use them. And that's a 17320 and a 17653 for the nuts. The flange nuts, the prevailing torque type, so they are lock nuts and they're single use, supposed to be single use only. And so I tightened these. You're not gonna, or I didn't find a tightening torque in the Dodge manual because these things are riveted in this case and they're not tightened down. But these bolts are good to 90 foot-pounds. That seems a little high to me. I believe, I'm going to verify this for sure, but the tightening torque of this ball joint here is around 60 foot-pounds, and the shaft is about the same size. So I would go with 50 to 60 foot-pounds. I did do 60 on this. Again, they are good to 90. That's what the bolt can handle, according to the spec sheets of the bolts. And so marking paint everywhere, 60 foot-pounds on all of these as well. That's what I went with. I do not take this as official, but I can tell you the bolts that came with the SKP would not handle that much force. So that's why I decided to spend quite a bit of money just on bolts figuring this out. Okay, we're going to start putting this back together. Okay, so we're going to put our wheel hub assembly. I'm going to try to get this on there. Hold it up. Castle nut. Get it on there so that we can have something to hold it up. Oh yeah, that's all right. That's all right. Okay, so then maybe I put that up too high. No, that'll work. That'll be fine. Okay, so there we go. Yeah. All right, so then we take our other castle nut. And let me just get it started. Let's get her started well enough. Okay. All right. It's here, but I think we're going to leave that the way it is. The old rusty castle nut there. You know why it's called a castle nut? Looks like a little castle. This is just a lock nut. There we go. It makes a lot more sense. We'll get proper tightening torques here in a minute, but I'm just going to put stuff together.
Torques are what, 90?
Down here, I don't know, so I don't want to guess. But I can see that is getting up in there, so this one is not even close. And that, of course, that's a tapered connection there between the two of them, which is why they're so hard to get apart. Or take some banging anyway. And what that means is that it is perfectly, it does not wobble. You know, if you had a bolt, it would wobble in there potentially, but not with a taper fit. Okay, it seemed like that was a 21. Let's see if this works. Don't show all this, by the way. I thought it was a 21.
I thought you said 24, though.
No, it's 24 on the bottom.
I thought it 22.
No.
Well, you took it off, so I mean...
Yeah, it didn't... I keep putting a 13/16 on there thinking it's going to work. All right. I don't know why it's not... Okay, so Important. This is a light duty steering component, and you'll know that because it will actually have the letters LD on it, which is, I noticed that before when I had it off. So the light duty has different tightening torques than the HD or the heavy duty. So keep that in mind. If you've got a heavy duty, you're going to need to look up different tightening torques. Tightening torque for the top ball joint is 60 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to do right now, 60 foot-pounds. There we are. All right. The tightening torque for the light duty on the bottom is 95 foot-pounds. Okay, so we're going to give it 95. All right, here we go. All right. So on these castle nuts, cotter pin has to go in, and maybe we get lucky and we don't have to change the position of this, and then again we don't. Okay, so yeah, this is not going to work, so I'm going to have to twist it just a skosh more in position, and you don't really want to overdo this. All right, a little bit more.
Wow, it feels really loose all of a sudden.
Oh. Rewind. Yeah, I was a little nervous about that. Get the cotter pin. Stick the cotter pin in.
I saw it poking through. I see it poking through.
Yeah, just have to kind of encourage it.
Just gonna have to bend a little bit.
You know what? Get a pair of pliers and pull it through. Now, I think that'll come through. It looks a little bit. I'm going to try to tap, just easy taps, so we don't bend up the cotter pin. Okay, so you can take your pliers and pull it through. I'm sure there are much better examples of that on the internet. Okay, and then finally, we need to put a tie rod in back here. All right, and this is tightened to 65 foot-pounds.
Super easy. Okay, yep, it's tightening up and in.
Okay. Okay, so we need to tighten that to 65 foot-pounds.
Feel 65.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Probably more like 85.
Let's hope not. Okay. Okay, so we should then be able to put on. Yep, so we're going to put on the rotor on the hub.
Almost.
Yeah. There you go. Got a couple of these guys. Okay, so then we'll put on our. We don't want to hurt this brake line for sure.
You're hitting it a little bit.
Yep. put these bolts in, just get them started. Yeah, it's difficult to see in the dark. All right, that is definitely started. Okay. Well, I might be bad at it, but in the end, we better get the bolts where they need to go and as tight as they need to be.
Yep. Not on that.
Yeah, I know. It's because the socket is so deep. There we go. And one on the bottom. All right, good, nice.
Say to somebody for the first time doing this.
I would say, and this is going to complicate things, but it probably would be easier to drill those rivets by taking the control arms off. I mean, I did take the top control arm off eventually. I did not take the bottom off because I didn't want to get involved in all that. And of course, you got a spring there too on the bottom, so you got to deal with that. But if you can get the thing in the air, you know, that'd make life a lot easier. But you know, for those of us who have to work on the ground like this, it's gonna be a challenge one way or the other, I guess. So we're done with this job, and it was a bit of work, but yeah, hopefully this is helpful in some way to you, and like and subscribe and all that, and support us in our channel and what we're doing. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.